live on Facebook. So let's just go through some bits of detail first. So I just want to thank everybody who's joining us. I just want to read out a couple of things before we go any further. Firstly, in terms of how this session will work, we'd ask you just to put your comments below this post if you can do, whilst we are broadcasting to you. There may be a 4 or 5 second delay in transmission from Zoom to Facebook, but we will try to make sure we keep up to date and manage any of your questions and queries. If for any reason this broadcast is interrupted, we are recording this broadcast and we will ensure that it is uploaded later in full, whether we lose connectivity to Facebook or not. This may not be, or will not be actually, our only version of this panel. So if we can't get through any of the questions tonight, or we want to come back to you with any more specific answers, we'll ensure that we do that when we organise more calls, and we'll keep you up to date with those calls. We'd ask you just to be respectful of each other and any comments that you may be making, and show some kindness. As I say, if we can't answer a question, we will come back to you. We are aware that there is due to be a live broadcast by government at 8:30, and we appreciate some people may want to head over to watch that. Again, we'll continue to broadcast this call and record it for you, should you want us to. Please note that this call aims to provide guidance only. Each and every situation is different and personal. So this guidance does not constitute advice and is given on a best endeavours basis. Should you wish to gain any specific advice, I've already added links to all of the members of this panel at the top of this post, and you are able to contact them all separately via the website detail that I've given for everybody who's on the call. So I just want to extend some thanks for you all giving up some time to come onto this kind of business help call. I just want to introduce some of the panel, and I'll let them go around and introduce themselves a bit more detail. So we have Tanya and Annabelle from TP Financial Solutions. They are based locally in our area and are approachable, jargon-free financial advisors, and they're here to alleviate any worries in relation to pensions, investments and insurance needs. We have Nicola from Morecambe Bay Wills and Estates, a local independent service for wills, powers of attorney and estate planning, with a charitable focus supporting the local cancer care facility. We've got Phil Tarman, who's the Managing Director of Blend Accountants in Morecambe, specialising in business growth. We have Christine Harwood from Account Matters Limited, who provide bookkeeping, payroll, accounting support to SMEs in the local area. You have myself, Ruth Wilkinson, owner of the Consult Centre. I work as a business coach, and we have a PR agency here in Morecambe. And we have Janet Whitworth from Whitworth Consulting, and provides freelance HR service to businesses across the Northwest. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Well
done. Nicola, I'm just wondering whether you want to start us off. Is there anything you would like to add to that kind of intro in terms of the advice you can offer for this evening?
Well, hi everyone. I suppose really, these are unprecedented times and quite worrying for many of us. And we're here to try and help you through that. It's difficult from my position, obviously, with wills and powers of attorney. I know that it's tough for you thinking about your own mortality and things that may or may not happen, particularly in this difficult times. I'm just here to make whatever you need easy and affordable, and give you as much help as you need in trying to navigate through some of these things.
Thank you very much. Janet, can I come to you next in terms of a bit of an introduction? We've currently got 21 people live that are watching, not to put you on the spot or anything, guys, but just so you know, you have people with you. Janet, would you mind, if that's okay?
Well, I've got retained clients across the Northwest, and I do a lot of one-off pieces of work as well. So I've been receiving a huge number of enquiries, particularly related to staffing issues with coronavirus. I think I'm as up to date as I can be, although the information is changing daily, but perhaps some of the experiences and also information from legal and HR forums, nationally, might help some of the people who are watching.
Thank you very much. Phil, can I come to you next?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, from a local accountancy practice specialising in business growth, I was actually starting to get angry a few weeks ago. The amount of news articles that come about the coronavirus it's appalling, and it's very difficult to find out what you want to know, and everyone is the expert. So I'm trying to dedicate a large amount of my time now to going through all that stuff and finding the stuff that people want to know about.
Thank you very much. Annabelle and Tanya, do you want to go next.
Yeah, I think to reiterate what Phil said, there's a lot of fake news, panic news going across social media, local media, and people are having to fight through what's right and what's wrong. And through our financial advice firm, we'd like to offer our services to anybody in the local area who's just generally worried or generally doesn't know what the right answer is. We're keeping up to date with government guidance. We're keeping up to date with the correct guidance, again, changing all the time. But it's just picking up the phone, asking us a question. We'll be on hand free of charge to just settle anybody's worries around pensions, investments, insurance at this time.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. And last but by no means least, Christine.
Hi there. Hi, yeah. Obviously at the moment things are still, we're getting information thrown at us thick and fast, and a lot of it's very vague at this moment in time. So again, it's just really to get out there that there are people out there to support you. We might not have all the answers straight away, but as new bits of information come out, we'll be looking at those and looking at the best way we can support the local community, local businesses, self-employed people in filtering through all of that information to find out what's relevant for them.
Thank you. And from my part in this, I'm going to facilitate mainly, but if it is social media, PR or business coach related, then I will answer any questions. I have got some already that people have asked that I will aim to answer. But I think as well as any of the comments that are going to be coming up on the live feed, there's a number of people that are saying hello. So Julie, Rachel, I'm looking this way because I've got a separate device. Vicky, Beth, thank you very much. We've got 38 people on live now, so may as well get to it, I think, as quickly as we can do. I appreciate that people will have lots of other things they want to be doing, and there's lots of questions that people have submitted for us to get through. So Janet, if I can start with you, there's a few questions, isn't there, around contracts and employment, if you're an employer, if you're an employee. So with your background, if we could just start with a couple of questions to you, if that's okay. This full on, oh, when, you know, people are talking about how they extend, now they don't, how people are, you know, most people aren't understanding what some of that terminology is. So we're talking about members of staff and employees who may have been put on some form of notice or may not be working at the moment, and what happens with that scenario. Can you help and offer some guidance?
Yeah, furlough, as was announced by the Prime Minister on Friday, it's a term that's not currently used in employment law, but what we do know is we are fitting it in with existing employment law. So a lot of things that we do know will carry forward. The use of furlough is for staff who would otherwise be being made redundant. So it's a redundancy avoidance measure. If you have a clause in your staff contracts already to lay them off, it's fairly easy to furlough them. If you haven't, you would probably need to consult with them and do it with their agreement to avoid any claims further down the line. Some of the sort of questions I've been getting are, can we furlough staff but still have them working from home? No. Furlough is a bit like, I've said, it's a bit like being pregnant. You either are or you're not. You're either furloughed or you're not. So it's 100% thing. You can't be dipping in and out with furlough. The government has said they will support it for 3 months and they'll keep it under review. The employer pays 80% of the staff wages up to £2,500 a month, and the employer will then reclaim it through an HMRC portal that we hope will be available in the next few weeks. I'll stop there and see if you've got any more specific questions.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions that have come as a result of that answer, actually. So Neil has mentioned that he needs to pay staff for March, and I think this is quite common. We've had a few people that have contacted me about this. How or when can they or are able to claim this 80%? You may just have mentioned it in that last, but we might just want to reiterate that.
Yeah, the government has said the scheme will be backdated to the 1st of March. So if you've had employees laid off for a few weeks, you should be able to reclaim the amount from when they went off, you know, when they were laid off. As I said, the HMRC is setting up a new portal for employers to reclaim it, and I'm sure they're working as fast as they possibly can. I think perhaps one of our financial colleagues might be able to talk about what other financial supports available to cash flow if you need cash now to pay people, knowing that you're going to be able to reclaim it from HMRC.
Okay, thank you. Christine, in terms of response to that point from Janet, sorry to put you on the spot, but could you perhaps just come in with a bit more just to aid a kind of a rounded answer there?
Yeah, so obviously your first protocol would always be any reserves that you're holding in your company. If you know you're going to be able to recover the money back, don't borrow anything at the outset until you absolutely have to. This business interruption loan that the government have announced has been launched today. There is information on the British Bank website, so you can go on there and have a look at how that all works. So it includes overdrafts, bank loans, all sorts of different things that can be put into place to give you some temporary cash flow support, and it will be interest free for 12 months. But clearly, if you're only borrowing it in the short term till all of the grants etc are put in place, you'll be able to repay it when that funding comes through.
Okay, thank you. And on that note around grants, Phil, if you could give us, and I know it's a complex subject, so kind of as succinct as possible, but in terms of this, people talk about a grant, is it a loan, is it a grant, is it not, is it 10 grand, is it 25 grand? Can we just give people a bit of reassurance and calm in terms of how that's going to
Yeah, well, the current guidance that we have is if somebody has a rate of under 15,000 and would normally claim at small business rate relief, then they will get a flat grant of £10,000. If they don't have to do anything, the local authority will approach them. Now, what you need to do, you need to find your last year's council tax bill as best you can for your business, because there's actually two different types. There's small business rates relief, which is a flat deduction. There's also a small business rates multiplier. Now that is not eligible, but that was news. That was even something that I learned today, that exists. So for this peace of mind, get your national non-domestic rates certificate out from last year and check that that is what you were getting. Now, if you're in one of the hospitality sectors, it's slightly different. I believe up to £15,000, which is where small business rates covers up to. The grant will still be 10,000. But from that 15,000 up to, I believe, and Christine can probably I think up to 50,000, that grant will be 25,000.
Yeah, 51, I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay. And Christine, we just had a question. Someone has just asked about the website, sorry, that you mentioned. So Hayley asked if you could just give us that website again that you said. I think you said the British Bank, did you?
The British Bank, yeah.
Yeah.
We can put a link on the site afterwards. I've got a link available that I can send through to you, Ruth.
Great, and we'll put it in the comments of this. So Hayley, I hope that helps you.
Can I add, there's one page on HMRC which has all the stuff on there and links to a lot of these things. I'm kind of using that as my main benchmark because things can change at any time. That's the stuff that is always up to date, or should always be up to date.
And I'll ensure that I add that onto the comments after this broadcast. So thank you. Nicola, can I just come to you next? I know that we talked earlier when we got together about this being quite a difficult subject because obviously it does affect people as both an illness or in terms of as a worry, but this is more around people having their personal circumstances sorted and clear so that they're able to concentrate on other things that are at hand and more immediate. So one of the things that has come up is if somebody was to be taken ill, what can I do to make sure that my business keeps running? If that person is the main driver of that business, what can business owners be doing to make sure that that's all in hand and perhaps sorted out before, if, and we hope not, that might happen?
Well, I suppose there's a few things really. It depends on whether you're a sole trader or whether you're sole trader or a limited company, just a sole person. Because if you're just on your own, then it's obviously much more difficult. If you've got someone else in your company, think about making sure that you have a backup for things like writing checks, things like accessing bank accounts, so that there's always someone there just in case you're taken ill. You can do powers of attorney for someone in your business to look after business affairs. At the moment, just so that you're aware, those powers of attorney, any powers of attorney are taking about 2 months to process and register at the Office of the Public Guardian. So, that's not a quick process. If you think you're going to need it, and really, as a business owner, you should be thinking about it anyway, start that process now. If you want something more immediate, then I would say look for a backup either as a member of your family or as a member of your business, make sure that you get them added as a joint signatory on your bank account at least. That's the main thing that I can advise at the moment, particularly from a financial perspective.
Thank you very much. Tanya and Annabelle, if we come to you next, this is around business owners, or actually those people that may not be business owners. They may actually just join this call because some of these things are of interest to them. So you've been asked some interesting questions this week when we were discussing recently some of the kind of top concerns that people have got. I'm going to ask you a couple of those if I can do. There's this opportunity for people to take a mortgage holiday. Should someone take one if they don't really need to? In so much as should they take advantage of it, I suppose, is the question we're asking.
The quick answer is no. The banks, the lenders are very busy dealing with people that desperately need these breaks from the mortgage payments. As with everything in society at the minute, the most needy of us are the priority, in our opinion. It isn't just a case of taking a mortgage holiday and there's no repercussion to that. You know, the interest on those payments will roll up and you will still owe the bank that money at some point in the future. That will either be through an increase in payments at a certain time, or it will be extending the term of your mortgage. The advice coming from the banks and the business development managers at the banks is if you're within 10 days of struggling to make a mortgage payment, or you think that is in the near future, then contact your bank. Each lender has a dedicated line for you to contact, and we also have contacts directly with most of the lenders within the UK. So if you're struggling to get through to your bank building society, give us a call. We might be able to help with that. But yeah, in short, if you don't need to take this mortgage break, don't see it as an opportunity, you know, to save 3 months mortgage and use it as a holiday next year. It's just not wise to do so. They're putting this in place for people that desperately need that provision, and there's plenty of people out there, and there should be the priority in our opinion.
Okay, thank you for that. There are a couple of responses to that, and very much people seem to be in agreement with your sentiment. The one other question that we're being asked is, there are people out there that do desperately need it, and they are going to take your advice, and they are going to be ringing their bank. Does it affect their credit rating at all?
No, in principle. The banks have set up agreements with Transact, credit union, people like that. If it is a pre-existing agreement with your bank or building society, it should have no effect on your credit score rating whatsoever. What we're strongly recommending people not to do is to cancel the direct debit for their mortgage and then deal with it after, because that will absolutely affect your credit score. Or if you miss a mortgage payment without having spoken to your bank first, that will likely register as a missed payment on your credit score, which is obviously going to have a negative effect. So the correct due process is speak to your bank, get that agreement in place, and then there will subsequently be no further repercussions to your credit score.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a couple of questions then. So Ian, you asked us about how do you access the 80% support for your staff. We have just answered that earlier, so when we get a chance to go back over the broadcast, you'll be able to see that. We have a question from Neil. He works for a gym and gets paid 16 hours. He also does PT, so personal training, which is a lot more than the wages, but he's obviously gone. Neil, I'm going to assume that you may be self-employed in that respect rather than your hours. Is there any assistance coming for those self-employed? Don't know whether Christine or Phil, probably this one's going to go to you two guys.
Good to go.
Yeah, please do.
So obviously the guidance that's been issued so far for self-employed is that universal credit is the way to go initially. We are expecting there to be further announcements because there's been quite a bit of uproar about the divide between employees and the self-employed, and the balance is completely off. So we're expecting further announcements hopefully this week regarding what other measures might be put in place. The issue with the self-employed is obviously there are a whole vast range of businesses that operate under the self-employed umbrella, and there's no one size fits all, so it's very difficult for the government to come up with a way of dealing with how those people are going to be compensated for their loss of income. So universal credit, there is a self-employed helpline that HMRC have set up that you can call and get advice from. But obviously, as the days go on this week, there'll be more things emerging as to what support you can get. I don't know if you've got anything to add there, Phil?
Yeah, the other thing I'd add is that they've extended it so that employment support allowance is available in the circumstance as well. Again, it's not much, but it's a question of using as many of these as possible to tide you over until more announcements are made.
Thank you very much.
There was also, just to add to that, sorry.
Oh, go on.
Just to add to that, there was also the announcement to do with income tax. So through self-assessment on account payments are due on the 31st of July, the second on account payments, they're actually going to be delayed or deferred now and are not expected to be paid until the 31st of January 2021. No action needs to be taken in that respect. They'll just be deferred and there'll be no penalties or fines. So just to free up cash flow for people in the short term.
Thank you. We've had lots of comments here, people saying what a good and helpful advice this is for people. So please continue to submit your questions, everybody. So go on from Alicia. I need help. I'm self-employed, high risk, and now my second day of self-isolation, worried about money. I suppose we've probably answered it in so much as in that sense, going back to that point around the universal credit and about the other assistance that you've mentioned, Phil. We'll make sure that we put any links and advice and more help in this comment document. Comments after this as well.
Did the question say that they were in the high risk category?
High risk category, absolutely.
Right, and on HMRC's website, they are giving specific support for people who are in a higher risk area. Again, we'll get the links up so you can go there. And it includes bringing in medication. I presume bringing other supplies as well, but there's not full details of what exactly they're going to do.
Thank you very much. Janet, can I come to you next? We've got a question around 0 hours contracts. What can we do? What can we answer, or put any kind of concerns or worries at bay in terms of 0 hours? I suppose if you could try and clarify as best as possible.
It's a tough one. 0 hours contracts are usually where the employer doesn't guarantee any hours and the employee can refuse work when it's offered. Because of the nature of them, they're not usually at risk of redundancy. And as I said at the outset, furlough and that support, the 80% support is for people who are at risk of redundancy. So at the moment, they're a little bit like the self-employed. They do fall down one of the gaps, but it has been raised as well as the issues with the self-employed. So we're hopeful that we might get some more information soon. And of course, an employer, if they can afford it, can continue to pay their staff. But as we know, a lot of employers are struggling with the cash flow, and at the moment they're not obliged to pay the 0 hours if they furlough, if there's no work.
Okay, thank you. Are there any implications for that in January 2020 payment would then pile on top of a deferred July 2020 payment? Christine, I'm going to ask whether that is the case, or yourself, Phil.
Sorry, say that question again.
Yeah, so is there any implications so that if they defer that so the payment that we were going to make to 2021 and then it kicks on and there's more payments due after that, are they going to slide everything back, or is it just a case of it will both be due at that point, I suppose, is what I'm reading from that?
They will both be due at that point, but as always with HMRC, and obviously with the current situation we're in, it's going to take businesses a while to get back on the feet once this is all over and we're kind of back to some sort of normality. So time to pay arrangements have also been mentioned by HMRC. Now obviously they're in the current sort of time frame, but depending on how long this goes on for, and obviously businesses that don't get back on the feet quite as quickly as they would hope, if they were still having financial difficulties in January, the time to pay options you would expect would still be available for those people.
Okay. And we have, we've got Vicky Rogerson asking, she's self-employed and had to close her swim school, and I've had all my first aid work cancelled. Partner's still getting paid from Lancaster City Council. Is there anything I can claim to replace the 50% of our income as I believe I won't qualify for universal credit. I don't know whether that's more of a personal question or whether or not it's actually business related and we're in a position to be able to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, that's very specific to universal credit and the rules around it. As I understand it, it is means tested and the whole household income is taken into account, but I don't really want to say any more than that because I don't know the ins and outs of it.
No.
Get in touch, apply, and see what information comes back from that process. There's no harm in going through that process to rule it out. In terms of other business support, the loans and things that have been offered, the business interruption loans, are also open to the self-employed, but clearly you don't want to go down the route of getting yourself in debt to keep yourself on your feet unless you absolutely have to.
Thank you very much. Okay, Janet, just another question for you in terms of this furlough. Now I can pronounce it properly. Can directors of limited companies furlough themselves?
I believe so if they are on pay as you earn. So if they are actually taking a salary on pay as you earn from the company, they should be able to furlough themselves. But remember the all or nothing, they mustn't carry on working if they are furloughed.
Okay, thank you. And can staff who are on furlough leave work for somebody else?
If they were full-time with the employer that's furloughed them, the answer would be no, because they must remain available to return to work as soon as the crisis is over. We have had some places where they're only like 16-hour contracts and maybe they had 2 jobs, they've been furloughed from one, not the other. That would be acceptable. But it isn't acceptable to be taking furlough money from your employer and then going and signing on with the Aldi or somebody so you're getting double income.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Nicola, can I come to you next, if that's okay? One of the questions is, if I'm taken ill, can my family claim any benefits on my behalf?
So the simple answer is no. You have to claim the benefits yourself. The only way around that is to have a power of attorney. That allows you, if you have a financial and property power of attorney in place, that allows you to deal with the benefits agencies on behalf of someone. As I mentioned earlier, that's taken a couple of months at the moment. So start early if you think that that's going to be the case. Alternatively, you can try each time you call the benefits agency, you can hand over to someone to do the call for you, but you have to be there in person at the start of the call to give your permission for someone else to talk for you. That's basically how it works.
Okay, but a power of attorney will be the
power of attorney allows you to deal with affairs for anyone that you have the authority to do so.
Yeah, okay.
Very useful, but you need them in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Tiny Annabelle, then, a couple of questions that we have here. Investments, people are worried about their investments. Is it a good time to be making changes to your investments right now? People are rightly concerned, aren't they?
I think the main thing to consider obviously across the board, we've seen massive drops in value in pretty much everything over the last 10 days. The graphs look horrifying within, over a week's time. And I think it's just important for everyone to firstly put it in perspective. So if this is a long-term investment plan or a pension or whatever it might be, and you've no need to access the money in the short term, then it's business as usual. Yes, it's everything's taken a tumble, but the only way to fully recover that is to remain invested. So keep it where it is, try and ride it out, and hope for that recovery to come sooner rather than later. I think it's a normal part of investment, to suffer drops in value. I think at the moment it feels different because it is a health crisis. You know, everybody's worried, everyone's concerned about relatives, and that emotion has a massive effect on how people feel about these things. And I think it's just trying to be really practical around the conversation of this happens with invested money. You know, things do drop. You know, we've seen it in 2008. Within 18 months in 2008, the markets had recovered and off they went again and grew from there. And that's what we expect to happen now. So we don't know what the time frame is going to be. But the minute we get some good news, that, you know, the minute things start tailing off and we're seeing fewer cases, fewer deaths, then the markets will respond and we'll see things, you know, recovering. I think the other thing to bear in mind is, you know, if you are invested in something that's, you know, spread across lots of different investments or assets, then, you know, there are businesses that are going to do really, really well out of what's happening at the moment. You know, the supermarkets, pharmaceutical companies, whoever the company is that's making the ventilators, you know, all of these companies are going to see much bigger profits than they would expect through this part of the year, not the normal. So there are potential good news stories, and I think it's just being really careful about looking at where you are actually invested, what the underlying assets actually are, and taking a sensible approach to, right, what is my time frame here. And like Tanya said at the beginning, if anybody wants to have a chat around that sort of aspect, you know, we've got all sorts of tools available to us, and we're happy to do that free of charge to have a look at what's going on and actually what the effect has been. Because even though the stock market might have dropped, you know, a scary percentage, your actual investment may not have dropped as much, and we can do some of that work for them.
That's really helpful, and thank you very much indeed. And probably one other question for you then, on the reverse of that, is now a good time to invest?
Yeah, it comes down to what your planning is. So if you were thinking anyway about, you know, making some investments from cash in particular, you know, the interest rates have been slashed to the lowest rate I think we've ever seen, and so obviously cash savings is not attractive. I think it's always important to make sure you've got some security. So provided you're not in this position where, you know, you're up against it anyway, if things are quite stable and you have got large amounts of cash and, say, for example, your income hasn't been affected by this, then obviously at the moment things are lower than they were 2 weeks ago. I mean, there's no guarantee that it's not going to drop further. I think we could probably expect a little bit of a further drop. But in the long term, it's all thinking about long-term investment is intended for 5+ years. And if you ask anybody, do you think that 5 years from today, the stock market and, you know, markets in general are going to be higher than what they are today? Then the answer is probably yes. So you could be buying at, you know, a bit of a discount. There's no, you know, nothing to suggest it won't drop further, but in the long term, you know, it's likely to recover quickly and quite dramatically. Thank
you very much. Okay, so we've got a few more questions that are coming in now. We've had a question on Lancaster or Lancashire Council planning to provide any aid to businesses beyond the central government offering. I'm not aware of any. I don't think there's a localised budget as such. It's very much directed from central government. At this point, anyway, up until this point of broadcast, I am not aware of anything else. I'll just quickly ask the panel for a shake of head or a nod if they believe that there is anything in addition to that.
There's something local with Lancaster County Council that I've seen. There is a pot of money they've got available that people can they can fill in a form on the LCC site. Again, I'll find a link to it and share it with you later, Ruth. It's the business support inquiry form around the situation they're in, and then the council will review that and come back to people with what may or may not be available for them to claim.
Right, okay. So I thought that was originally their way of just understanding how many people were potentially going to go for the grants and the loans aspect. So we do have the URL for that. Nicola and I discussed this earlier, didn't we, Nicola?
Yeah, yeah. And there's, you know, I would encourage everyone to pre-register for it, whether you think you're going to get something or not. At least you're there, you're on the radar, you're on their database. You know, tell them what your situation is, give them your details, you know, and see whether anything can come your way.
I mean, there are a few other, I mean, these are less local things, but Facebook Business are in the process of making grants. There is interesting things to sign up for. My advice is sign up for absolutely everything to see what is out there and what support you can get.
Yeah, so Facebook Business are looking to create a number of grants for social media to enable people to advertise in order to be able to recover awareness of their businesses. So as Facebook Pros Consult Centre, we'll make sure that the minute that that stuff gets released, we will fire that out to everybody. And one thing I would say is if you don't already have an ad account, which you need to have on Facebook, you would need to create one. If you're a client of ours, we've already got that, you don't have to worry about it. But if you are not, then there's a Facebook Ads Manager. If you Google it, you're able just to create yourself an account, and that allows them to enable that. There is talk about that being looked at on priority of spend and influence of previous trade, but again, it will probably be available. Absolutely. Some more questions. As a limited company, director paying oneself, what criteria is required to be eligible for 80%, or time period is limited? Pay slips for a specific period. Are new companies eligible?
Want me to take that one, Ruth?
Yeah, sorry. So yes, if you wouldn't mind, that would be great.
Yeah, well, obviously we're still waiting for the full details of the scheme, but the understanding we've got at the moment is that there's no qualifying period, so you don't have to have been employed for 6 months or anything like that. If you are on pay as you earn, so you're earning enough to be registered for pay as you earn, then you should be eligible for the 80% reclaim if you're not working.
Okay, fantastic. And then the other question that we were asked earlier was in regard to furlough. It was said 3 years. Sorry, 3 years, 3 months.
Yes.
That'd be all right, wouldn't it? 3 months. Some people are asking, what's the intention? Is there potentially going to be an extension of that? I know we can't predict, but you know,
the government just said they would review the situation. So it was initially for 3 months, but they would keep the situation under review.
Stephanie, to answer, thank you, Janet. Stephanie, to answer your question, what I said was Facebook are making a fund available. They haven't necessarily defined exactly what that is, but there is a very large fund which they're being partially funded for, and part of, it's not a loan, it's a bursary almost, I suppose you would call it, if want of a better phrase. And they may well, as part of that, look at some of their key spenders and what the average spend has been before now. So I think it very much, to use the phrase means tested doesn't sound right. What I mean is what your previous spend may have been. We will get advance notice of that as Facebook Pros, so we'll make sure that that goes out to anybody who has commented on this and has been part of this call. So we'll make sure that we keep you informed of that. Let me see what else we've got that's here. I think we've answered some of those questions already. Okay, yeah, there are some more questions. Okay, so how do we arrange to defer payment of our VAT, and what is that deferment period? I know we mentioned it, Christy, but to be really clear, and Phil, you know, is there a specific?
It's basically being, each payment is currently being delayed by 3 months. You put your VAT return as normal. People who pay by direct debit, I haven't put one in myself yet. I don't know if you have, Christine, but it should automatically get it up to date with when it will be taken out.
Yeah, and I understand as well the VAT that's being deferred can actually be deferred to the end of the current tax year, so to April 2021. So any VAT that hasn't been paid within the normal timeline for this period, 20th of March to the 30th of June, you will have a period of several months to then arrange to repay that amount up to the end of March 2021.
Okay, and we're presuming that won't incur any penalty or cost during that period. It will be a case of, it will almost be frozen, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay. We need to just probably mention it again because I have had a couple more people ask the same question, but how do we apply for the government grant? So we've talked, just to clarify anyone who is listening and watching, that there's not an application process as such. It will be automated for some of that grant, won't it, in terms of what the local authority understands about you and your premises and business? Phil, if you can take that one.
Yeah, the local authority will contact you. Now, there isn't anything official on the government site when you can chase it. My business partner seems to reckon he's seen something that if you've not heard by the 30th of April, I know it's a long time away, but that's when you'll be able to chase. But again, that is what he's told me. There's nothing formally on the site that should be getting in touch.
Okay. Next question probably for Nicola or for Janet, probably, or perhaps both. If I have offered someone a job, do I have to take them or can I rescind the offer?
Want me to start? If you've offered someone a job, either verbally or in writing, that's actually a contract. If you don't proceed with that, potentially you could be in breach of contract. You might be able to agree with them to defer the date when they're going to start, but that would have to be by mutual agreement. If you do start them, you may be able to furlough them straight away. You would obviously have to get the details, set them up as pay as you earn, and put them on the furlough leave and just pay 80% of the salary and reclaim the 80%.
Okay, and just to be really clear, when you furlough somebody, what that doesn't mean is they can work from home remotely and do a bit of work and then you can claim.
Absolutely not. If you're on furlough leave, you're not working at all. You're staying at home, watching Netflix, homeschooling the kids, but you're not doing any work for that employer.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So coming to Annabelle and well to Tanya, so I'm thinking of taking the loan or the grant money and investing it. Is this a good idea?
No. I think, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, the loans and the grants, particularly in these early few days and weeks, are going to be for those who really, really need them. So, hopefully there are going to be businesses and people amongst the community who will get through this period of time. Yes, there's going to be difficulties and, whether it's kids off school or whatever it might be, but actually financially we'll be stable, we'll be able to work from home and continue the businesses. And that's fantastic. So the money should be left for those who really need it. We're yet to see, the full terms of the loans in huge amounts of detail. And obviously, if you're taking that money as a loan, regardless of how low the interest rate might be, that's still going to have to be repaid at some point. And even though, things, are low at the moment from an investment point of view, and potentially it could be an okay time to go in, there's no guarantee of when that recovery is going to come and what the degree of that recovery is going to be. So if you took the loan or part of the grant and invested it and then it drops in value and you need to repay that money, obviously it's going to cause more trouble than it's going to solve. So I'd say just tread very carefully and use, access the grants and the support that's there, which is obviously, going to be really good in a lot of cases, but only use it if you really need to. And certainly, don't be trying to play the system.
Thank you. So Neil has asked a question. I saw a Facebook post saying Lancaster City Council are not going to collect rent for a period. Please tell me this is true. I don't know if that is true or not, but for my 2 pennies worth, and the rest of the panel might be able to answer that question, so I'll ask them in a moment. But I've had a number of my business coaching clients that have asked me the question about lease and rent. And in all cases, which just goes to show the kindness of some people, that my advice to them was that they wrote at the earliest opportunity to their landlord, and they asked if that landlord would be prepared to give them a period of time where they could slide their rent payments for their business premises over. So it's lease payment, rent payment, whatever you want to call it. In my experience, each of those landlords came back and said yes. So they they took a proactive approach and they asked the question early. And those people that have got some retail premises and so on with private landlords, I accept, did get a very favourable response and were able to come to an arrangement, whether it was a total slide of that up until a later date, yet obviously still got to be paid, or whether indeed it was an agreement that was for a lesser amount. So I don't know necessarily about Lancaster City Council, but I do think regardless of circumstance, it's worth asking the question. Is anybody on the panel aware of a Lancaster City Council response at all? No. Okay. Karen, Boris has just been on mega lockdown now. I don't think he'll perhaps have used that phraseology, but Karen just summed it up in one line for us all. I've had a couple of questions around some social media around what, do I keep posting on social media even though I'm closed? It's a difficult one, but the advice I would say is yes. I think you need to judge the mood of your customers, general population, client base. I don't think necessarily that promoting is a good idea, but I think keeping in touch with your community, your consumer is. At some point, we're going to turn this tap back on and everyone's going to get lively again. And you don't want to be in a position where you have to re-educate that consumer as to who you are and what you do. So the best thing you could do right now is give away free information, free advice, helpful content. People will be very appreciative of that. And there is plenty that people can share in that sense. It doesn't have to be promotion. It doesn't have to be sales. It just has to be an awareness with some really helpful guidance and some advice. So I wouldn't say don't post. I would say be sensitive to what you post and make sure that it's of value to people that are seeing it. But you know, you are part of a community. You will be providing a very valuable service, and people will still want to be in touch with you regardless whether or not that service is physically taking place right now or not. The only other bit of advice I would give you is try and refrain from being in any way political or indeed derisory about anything that might be going on. There's enough people that are creating that sentiment, and I would suggest that you buck that trend ever so slightly and be more positive, and I'm sure everybody will be. But okay. So a couple of other questions then. What do I need to do if employees choose to self-isolate? I suppose there's probably a financial answer to this and there's a HR answer to this too. Janet, please may I come to you first for the answer to that question?
Yeah, if they've been advised to self-isolate, as opposed to just choosing to if they're completely healthy, but if they're in a high-risk group or it would be risky for them to come to work and they are self-isolating, it's SSP from day one. If they're eligible for SSP. If they're not eligible for SSP, they should go through Department for Work and Pensions and claim either universal credit or employment support allowance.
Okay, just for those people that are watching, SSP is?
Sorry, statutory sick pay.
Thank you, thank you. Phil and Christine, I'm going to hand that now to you to ask to perhaps give your view. Thank you very much, Janet.
Yeah, the important thing to note is the government have said they will fund coronavirus-related self-isolation only for up to 14 days. However, you need to reclaim this through, we presume, the same portal as for furloughed workers. So again, that will be announced shortly.
Okay, thank you. Christine, do you have anything to add to that, or?
No, I think that's covered it.
Okay. So I've had a question which is around, do I cancel my events? If you are able to, in any way, shape or form, take that event online. So if you use this as an example and you were a training business or you were a coaching business or you were a consultancy and you were able to do this rather than see people in person, I think that you could try where possible. So the account we're using is Zoom. Okay, this is a different type of paid account, but there are basic accounts that you can use that allow you to meet with 3 to 4 people for 40 minutes for free. On a regular basis, and if you're able to do that to remain in contact and to be able to continue to do business, I absolutely would suggest that you try to do that. If you are doing training events, there is no reason why you can't do this. You might need to pay the $15 a month for a higher grade account. It means you can have up to 100 participants. There's no time limit, and you're able to screen share, slide share, invite people onto calls, participant and broadcast. So if you are able to do that, I would suggest you do. If you have got an event out there that people have paid for, then you're absolutely able to do that. You can offer them the alternative to enable them to take that online if you want to try that. So I would suggest you try and do that with Zoom or Microsoft Teams or anything of that nature. So, okay.
I think just on that, Reesley, I'm just looking at the Prime Minister's update for today. And he specifically said that all gatherings of more than 2 people in public, excluding people you live with, are banned. And the government have now got measures to disperse people and fine people who are doing that. So it's kind of no longer guidance. It's finding
directive.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So taking it online is imperative right now then. Okay, thank you. Okay, we probably have got a lot more questions. I'm just conscious that people have been watching us for a little while now, so we're going to kind of probably come to the end of things. But I wanted just to go around everybody on the panel, if you have any key things that we haven't had chance to ask you about that you feel are really important, that you just want to convey or put across under the circumstances. So I hate picking on people now because I'm going to go, right, and you next. Sorry. But Tanya and Annabelle, is there anything that you particularly want to close off with? We're going to make sure everyone has everybody's details. This won't be our only call. We will do more of these. And if you want us to, everybody, if you could, and you're watching this now and you want us to do another one of these as and when we're able to arrange, probably in a couple of days' time. If you do want us to do this again, if you can comment, again, or yes, please, under here, then we'll make sure that we do some more of these for you. But Tanya, Annabelle, anything that you would like to just kind of close and sign off with?
I think my big take from this is, don't just take social media's word for it. Don't just take the things that you're reading as given. In our local area, we've got so many brilliant small professional businesses. You can see, the 6 companies that are represented here that will happily, pick up the phone and speak to you for 10, 15, 20, half an hour for free. There's no charge for it. So instead of getting panicky, instead of reading things that are perhaps incorrect or unhelpful, shall we say, pick up the phone. There's a lot of us here keeping up on the pulse, keeping up with what's happening. Even if it's just, I'm really frustrated, I'm really worried, what do I do? Just having a chat with somebody can really, really help that. And on behalf of us both, I'd like to extend that to anybody watching. We've got mobile numbers on our website, we've got landline numbers, email addresses. If you just want quick question answering, you just want your worries calming down a little bit, get in touch. It's no problem. We might not be able to go out of the house and give you a hug and a high five, but we can absolutely speak to you on the phone and help you in any way that we can.
Yeah, I think anyone that's got any particular concerns about pensions, investments, or if they've got family members who are worrying about drops in value, that kind of thing, like I say, if anyone wants to get in touch with us, we're more than happy to have a look at the specific funds and investments, give you a bit of guidance and a bit of a comparison and try and put it in perspective. And absolutely no charge for it whatsoever. Just contact us and we're happy to do that for people.
Thank you. And I think probably at this point, I'm just going to mention, because there's a few people saying the same, it's a great session, they want another one. Will you do another one when the self-employed update is announced? I think the answer to that is yes, we absolutely will do, and we'll continue to do these as often as we can get them fitted in. And you can contact all of these professionals that are on the panel, because all of their contact details were put onto this post before we started the broadcast. Or if you want to remember just one thing, if you then email hello@theconsultcentre.com and fire your question into there, when I then get everybody together again, we will do a response to every single one of those questions. So we can do it one way or the other. If it's particularly urgent and you absolutely are desperate to know the answer, I'm sure these guys would like you to contact them direct, or they've got lots of other stuff that we need to be doing at the same time. If you want to funnel it all into one place, please email it to hello@theconsultcentre.com. And I will make sure that when we get together, we'll cover every single one of those questions for everybody. So thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Annabelle. Can I come to you, Janet? Anything particular that you would like to sign off with or say?
To ask people to talk to the staff. If you're worried about getting things wrong, if you do things where the staff agree and they do it voluntarily, you're a lot less likely to get things wrong. And you might be amazed how much they want to work with you to support you, hopefully keep their jobs there for the future. So talk to staff would be my main thing. And similar to the others, I'm very happy to take phone calls, emails. I'll help if I can, free of charge. So don't hesitate to get in touch.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nicola, I'll come to you next. Anything particular that you'd like to sign off with?
I think, we all need to take steps to protect ourselves, in the house, outside of the house, the usual hand washing, etc., etc. I would also encourage you just to protect what you've got. So talk to one of these professionals. I've talked a couple of times about powers of attorney. This is the sort of time that, we all think, oh, I wish I'd done that because it takes 2 months. There are other things that you can do quite quickly. If you want a bit of advice, give me a shout. If you want me to look at your will, if you've got one and you're worried about whether it's fit for purpose, I'll do that for nothing. You know, again, I'm like everybody else, here to help. You know, so just ask, basically.
Thank you very much. Christine, I'll come to you next. Anything that you would like to kind of share and sign off with?
Sorry, was that to me, Ruth? It broke up. Yeah, just really for people not to make rash decisions regarding the business. You know, sit back, take stock. Don't borrow money if you don't need to borrow money. Look at your cash flow. Look what you've got going out of the bank in the forthcoming weeks, and look at when you're likely to have an issue, and then look at what you think might be available to you in grant form in the first instance, and also look at your staffing and how you can deal with the staff, whether you furlough some of them, whether you have to furlough all of them, and what the implications of that are on the business and what bit of income you may still have coming in. So don't rush, and seek advice from whoever is there to support you, be it your current accountants, bookkeepers, or anybody that's here today that can just answer a quick question, as Tanya said earlier. So we're all here to support you.
Thank you. Phil?
Yeah, adding on really from what Christine was saying, the temptation is we're going to need to borrow money to get through this. You need to take a very hard look at your business. You need to see, is this viable? The world is now going to change, and no matter what happens after this, the world is going to change. And it might be a case, sadly, that the business that you're at is no longer viable in its current form. So you need to step back, look at everything to do, and see if there's a way you can make this work before doing something which could have a potentially bigger impact on you long term.
Yeah, and actually following on from that, I think that's a good point, which is, you know, if you're needing to turn your business quickly, if you needed some help around getting online, if you need some help in terms of I need to make a change to how I bill people, how I access services, how I provide services, how I communicate on media, how I change my website, am I able to do this contract in my business, am I not? Those kind of services, social media, PR, and business coaching questions, I'm exactly the same as everybody else on this panel. We are all here to help you, and where we can help you, we will help you free of charge. So please just send those questions to us. We'll do everything we can within our power and availability to make sure we help. So I just want to extend my thanks to all of you on the panel for taking your time to come on here and give your benefit of your expertise and your support, and the offers of free help and ongoing free help are, you know, really very heartfelt and really will be a great comfort to lots of people that have watched this call. So we will do another one, and we will announce that and make sure that we do communicate that well. As a reminder, if you want those questions answered, you can comment below this particular broadcast, or you can email them to hello@theconsultcentre.com, and we'll make sure we address them. Or if they are very urgent and you have if you wanted to contact any of the professionals that are on this panel, all of their contact details are on the broadcast of this post. So yeah, we're getting lots of thank yous. Everyone's saying it's fantastic and it's been such a massive help for them. So we're really glad of all you out there that are watching. We hope that this is something that we can all ride out, and I'm sure we can. And I think if we can just keep talking to each other, just support each other, and just remember that person that you might not have spoken to for a couple of weeks, just give them a call and check that they're doing all right. And I think if we did that, we'd be providing a vital service. So thank you very much, everybody, and good night. And we will be back soon. Thanks, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Cheers.
Night.